my name is Melvin Parson,
All right.
and I was born in a small one-horse town called Detroit.
Okay.
And I had the fortune of being raised by one of those folks that are sometimes affectionately known as praying grandmothers.
Okay.
You know, and this woman here, and she put a lot of time in me. You know, she invested a lot of time and a lot of prayers, and she made sure that I early on went to a private school and got a decent education. But my environment that I lived in took over, and and I grew up in an era where young boys were being exploited to sell drugs, and so that swayed my direction in life, and
Sure.
and then and my heroes were people that hustled in the street and all that kind of stuff, and as a result of that, I made quite a series of like bad choices and bad decisions, and they wound me up in places that I was not at home built and designed to go
Okay.
in the direction of. Like I wound up in jail and prison.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I spent over 13 years of my life in prison or
Okay.
jails off and on.
Okay.
I wound up being addicted to drugs and alcohol, and battled with that for years. Even wound up homeless a few times. I dropped out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Went back many years later to get a GED.
Mm.
And subsequently went on to college, and here in Washtenaw County, and went to Washtenaw Community College for a couple of years. I didn't know why I went. I didn't know what I was going to do. I went back to college, and the only reason I went back to college was to get student loan money. Yeah, that's it, man. And somehow wound up a few years later with a bachelor's degree in social work from Eastern Michigan University.
All right.
So I got kind of bamboozled into that, I feel like.
Let me back up for a second, man. So going through the addictions and the incarcerations
Yeah.
and the homelessness, and at some point something motivated you to go back and get your GED and then go to community college.
Yeah.
What was it that gave you that spark, man?
Not really sure. Like even with the whole addiction process, Callan, it was long and tenuous, and and many years, and I went to lots of different treatment centers trying to get my act together, and none of them worked really, but that wasn't because they didn't work. It was more because I just didn't know how to use the tools that they were trying to give me to battle that. And at some point, I wound up here in Washtenaw County. I arrived here on May the 8th of 2004. For some reason, that day is very seared in my memory.
Okay.
And I think it's seared there because it was almost like the moment I got here and on the bus and across the city limits, and something said to me, man, this is where you're going to get your act together.
All right.
And it's so far it's proven to be true, I guess, on some levels, but I didn't know that, everywhere I go, there I am.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I brought me with me. And so for many years, even after coming up here, I floundered, with addiction, and I floundered with learning how to be an adult.
Yeah.
being responsible and accountable and all of those things, you know, being a father,
Mm.
you know, because I had a son and
Yeah.
still do, and I've
Yeah.
got a wonderful grandson. So I mean, it was a lot. It was like a learning process, and so I stand here today, keenly aware of the reason being so is that I'm able to stand on the shoulders of a whole lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who have supported me, who have nudged me, who have inspired me, who have sometimes scolded me, you know,
Yeah.
you know, all those things, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't turn their back on me.
Yeah.
Like they didn't give up on me. They took time, you know, they gave of themselves, right? You know.
You mentioned your grandmother, right?
Yeah.
Your praying grandmother.
Yeah.
Who else has been your inspiration, man? Who else has supported you along the way?
Man, I've had a lot of people support me along the way. I
Yeah.
can't even, I don't want to really talk about one,
Yeah.
you know, and then leave others out.
No, I
who were
completely
like-
understand that.
Yeah, who were like very, very instrumental in that given space and time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, but there has been many.
Have you had any real role models or heroes in this journey?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, those are role models are hard to come by sometimes. You know, as a young man,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I've been through some things as well, and
Mhm.
you know, having a positive role model makes just a huge difference. So who do you look to say that's the kind of man I want to be?
Right.
Yeah, we need more of those.
We need more of those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it sounds
yeah.
like that's the path you've taken.
I've had role models ranging all the way from, man, when I first got up here, there was this homeless person. I will talk about him. There's this homeless person. His name is Leon. Leon was quite the character.
Mm-hmm.
And he had some mental challenges, whatever. I think most of us do. And I would just see Leon out on the streets, and I would approach him, and as long as I learned this about me, and I think it's part of what makes me really lean into being authentic and open and honest. But as long as I approached Leon being authentic and open and honest with whatever was going on with me, this person, Leon, would give me just the most profound answers to my dilemma,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I could walk up on Leon and he could be standing on the corner talking to himself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing there, you know, and so in some ways Leon was a role model to me in that he gave of himself. Whatever he was doing at that moment, he stopped
Mm-hmm.
and listened to me, you know, and offered me some advice.
And that's something else, man.
That's something else,
Yeah.
you know. My son is a role model to me.
Okay. How so?
I've got a son, man, who's bar most people, most men, you know, he's the best father I've ever seen. He's an exceptional father.
Mm.
And he takes care of himself in quite a few ways, very, very well. You know, and he's an exceptional father, and it has nothing to do with me having been his father,
Mhm.
because in all of those developmental years as he was growing up, I was going through all of my
Mhm.
shenanigans. So I was not a good father. So to watch him excel
Mhm.
at fatherhood inspires me to want to do the same.
Yeah, that feels good, doesn't it?
Feels great.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
Yep, I gotcha. I've got a son too. My son's 21,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he's going to be a much better man than I am. And that's
That's what we
gives us hope for
right?
the future,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you went back, you got your GED, and you went back to Washtenaw Community College.
I did.
And you ended up at Eastern.
I did.
Yeah. What drove you into social work? What was that all about?
What drove me into social work was another person who was very, very prominent in my life at the time that I was at Washington Community College. I was going there to learn how to be a welder.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to be a welder, and I think I would have been a pretty decent welder, made decent money, whatever. And I went over to his house one day, and at this time, this particular individual knew me better than anyone on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had developed a really close relationship, and I went over there to just show him some of my welding projects.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, Melvin, yeah, you probably would be a good welder, but if you really want to be happy, you should go back to school and become a social worker and help a bunch of people.
All right.
And I valued, his opinion as it related to me so much that I shifted direction and went back to school and started taking social work classes and wound up at Eastern Michigan and continued in that path and met some amazing people there and some amazing professors, and including the professor that nominated me for this award, David Manville.
Mm-hmm.
And and the rest was history. And it's so interesting though. I see social work from I don't want to be a social worker.
Okay.
Very honorable profession. I see I don't want to be anyone's social worker.
Uh-huh.
I see things, I think, from a macro perspective. I'll give you an example, Callan. I don't want to take this unhealthy plant out of its soil and bring it over here and nurse it back to health, and then take this now healthy plant and put it back in the soil that made it unhealthy to begin with.
Right.
What I want to do is change the soil,
Yes.
and then the plant, you don't have to remove the plant,
Yeah.
right? You just change the soil, change its environment.
Yeah. I like that analogy.
Yeah, and it's kind of like our motto with the organization that I have founded and am the director of. Like, our motto is to change the soil in the lives of those we come in contact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
You started this organization, right?
Right.
And it's because all these things add up one to another, right?
Right.
So this guy says, you're not supposed to be a welder. You're supposed to be a social worker.
Mm-hmm.
You go there, and you learn about social work, but you
Right.
realize that's not what I want to be. I want to change the soil.
Right.
And then, so how did you go from being somebody
Social worker.
studying for social work to starting an organization? And what is
To
your
the farmer?
organization? Yeah.
Yeah. Great question. I mean, you know what? And let me back up. I guess what I am doing is social working.
Yes, it is.
Yes. So let me say that. Yeah.
You didn't want to do it. You didn't want to go into a social worker role,
Right.
but you do want to do social work.
Yes. So yeah, let me acknowledge that part there.
Yeah. I see you.
And I kind of stumbled upon that. Again, this same person who told me go back to, if I wanted to be happy, to go to school and become a social worker. Also, he knew at the core of me that I'm a champion of social justice and social equality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a firm believer that either you got a seat at the table or it's your ass that's on the menu, right?
Yep, right.
And somehow or another, where I was living at, which was Avalon Housing at the time, I was living in one of their units, and they have an edible garden program. So if you're living there and you want to grow some food, They've got some raised vegetable beds. They will provide you some seedlings and some back-end support. And I lived there for 4 years and never thought about being part of that program.
Okay.
And then, and I've told this story many times, and then in 2013, this wonderful lady named Verna, who was a prolific gardener, passed away in that winter. And then the following spring in 2014, I somehow wound up with one of her raised vegetable beds.
Okay.
And I didn't ask for the vegetable bed. It was just kind of landed in my lap. And so I thought, okay, let me roll with this and see how this plays out.
Okay.
And I was given some seedlings, and I was cleaning out the bed one day. I remember I was pulling all the weeds out of there, getting ready to put the seedlings in the ground. And I swear to you, Callan, I could feel Verna's spirit come down over me. And
Yeah.
I looked up in the heavens and I said, hey, Verna, look, you know I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do the best I can to honor you.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
got some seedlings, put them in the ground, some stuff started growing. I saw a documentary called Food Inc. I'm
Saw
like,
it,
holy
yeah.
cow. And
Yeah.
so that led me down to the farmer's market in Ann Arbor.
Uh-huh.
And I'm down there trying to figure out what kale is or the zucchini or you name it. And I see nobody that looked like me
Right.
the whole time I'm there. And I looked around at the folks selling me my food, and none of them looked like me either.
Yep.
And again, I'm a firm believer in social justice and
Mhm.
social equality and having a seat at the table. And this person knows that about me, and so they would send me articles of farmers and stuff like that, and all of them were old white men.
Yeah.
And he knew that would get at me in
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah.
And so it was all those things combined that led me to wanting to have a seat at the table.
Okay.
And so I started a company called We the People Growers Association
Okay.
with no strategy in mind. I just wanted to raise some money to fundraise to get some shovels and some rakes. And someone told me the best way to do that is to do a crowdfunding thing, but then I had to become an entity, and so
Yeah.
that's why We the People Growers Association was born. And from there, from having that vegetable bed that I inherited while at Avalon Housing, I went on to do a couple community garden plots, and then in 2017 I had an opportunity to lease some land from where we currently are now, from a church called Grace Fellowship Church House of Solutions
Okay.
in Ypsilanti off South Harris Road. And so I started with a half an acre of land.
Mm-hmm.
And again, at this point, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And so I got a rototiller, created some vegetable beds, ordered $1,200 worth of seedlings. I had no idea how many seedlings $1,200 would get you.
Right. Right. You found out.
I found out, and it was like the field of dreams, man. Like people started just showing up to help.
Yeah.
And I think that year, man, I had over 200 people come out and volunteer and help me build this thing.
Nice.
And I wound up selling produce to 17 restaurants in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti that year. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
You were supposed to be doing it,
I
though.
was supposed to be doing
Pretty
it.
clear.
Yeah, I remember calling one of my dear friends. His name is Ari Weinsweg, one of the co-founders of Zingerman's.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hey, Ari, I think I'm in a little trouble here, man. I'm growing all this dang on food, and I don't know what to do with it. And he says to me, Mel, we'll buy some from you. and so like he was my first customer, right?
Yeah.
Like Zingerman's Roadhouse was my first customer.
Yeah,
and,
Ari's great, isn't he?
Awesome individual, he really is.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't know, I didn't know what I was doing, but the chefs were telling me that, man, this food is incredible, this is great, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm glad you think so, right? Because it wasn't intentional on my part.
Mm-hmm.
But what was intentional, Callan, was that somehow instinctively I knew to pay attention to the soil. So like I tried to keep good soil and mend it and put some worm compost tea on it and all of this stuff. And at the end of that magical year, the thing that I learned was that you can be a gardener or a farmer that doesn't know what they're doing, but if your soil's good, chances are your plants will flourish.
For a while.
For a while. And on the other hand, you can be a brilliant farmer or gardener and you know exactly what you're doing, but if your soil's not good, chances are your plants won't flourish.
Right.
Right. So bottom line is that it's all about the soil.
Yes,
right?
it is.
It's all about the soil.
Yes.
And because of that social work experience and language and education, it dawned on me that the same thing applies to human beings just as it does to the plants, right?
Yeah.
It's all about our soil, right?
Yeah.
And if we're in good soil, our chances of flourishing and thriving are better, and if we're not, chances are we very well may not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've had some really cool nudges along your path, man.
I have.
People nudging you in a direction, right? And
Yes.
you were supposed to be somewhere and you didn't know it, but people have
Right.
been kind of just giving you a little shove.
Yeah.
Was it Verna? Was that her name?
Verna.
Verna. Yeah. You ended up with a gift.
I ended up with a gift.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
So you started this business, We the People. You've got this. You've got the farm. You're starting to grow things. You're starting to understand the impact that you can have not only on the environment and the ecology, but on people as well.
Right.
So what happened then?
Oh, what happened then was, next year, same thing. But at that point, it was primarily me and just this incredible volunteer pool of people that would come by and help. And in December of 2018, I founded a nonprofit called We the People Opportunity Farm.
Okay.
And that's currently where everything goes through, and so with that being said, in my experience of being formerly incarcerated and all of that, I wanted to come up with a platform where we could begin to hire people returning home from incarceration.
Okay.
That was challenging because there's not a lot of money in farming, and we didn't have the ability, and still don't, to keep people on full time all year round because of the weather.
Right.
But what we did in 2019, we experimented a little bit. We weren't able to really get off the ground. But last year was another one of those magical years where we started. Last year was our inaugural, what we call internship program. So it's a 9-month paid internship program for formerly incarcerated men and women.
Okay.
COVID threw some wrinkles in there, as it
Yes.
did with everyone.
Yeah.
But we were able to usher 5 formerly incarcerated men and women through that program at different points in time.
Yeah.
Like no one stayed the whole 9 months.
Right.
But at different points in times, we were able to usher 5 men and women through that program. We went on field trips, Some of them work with Habitat for Humanity, helping them refurbish or build a house in the community. And after the internship was over, which was the end of October, we were able to help them, at least 4 of them. A couple of them already had jobs, but we were able to help a couple of folks find full-time employment, which is important, right?
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And this year we want to double that. You know, we want to start with 4 interns. Last year we just wanted to keep 2.
Right.
This year we want to start with 4, and we want to keep 4. And not only do we want to keep 4, we think about the words kindness and dignity. I've had conversations with this person a lot about kindness and dignity and what does that look like. And he always says to me that it doesn't solve the world's problems, but it goes a long way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I agree with him. And so I think about what that looks like for me in my life and how do I convey kindness and dignity to those I come in contact with, but also how does the organization do the same?
Sure.
And so one of the ways in which we want to convey that to the folks, the formerly incarcerated men and women that come into our program this year, is we want to pay them a wage that says to them that they're valued.
Sure.
And we value them. And so this year we're going to pay our interns $17 an hour
Okay.
to be with us 15 to 20 hours a week. One of our partners in this endeavor will be the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office Street Outreach Program. And we've got other valuable partners such as Michigan Works. We envision our interns going through a soft skills training program through Michigan Works. And of course, our relationship with Habitat for Humanity and quite a few other organizations here in Washtenaw County. You know, we want to be able to early on identify what their needs are and their objectives. And during the time they're with us in those 9 months, we want to help them to meet those needs and objectives. And, and once they're done, once the internship is over, to continue to support them in any way possible. I think this year we're starting an endowment fund for our interns. So like once they're done, they may need transportation to get back and forth to school or to a job. And we want to be able to help them with that. Maybe they want to buy a used car or something.
Sure.
And so we want to be able to help them. Or they may get behind on their rent or something like that. And we want to be able to support them and build relationships with them and build community in that way.
We're in tough times, Melvin. You know, you're giving people a bridge. You're giving them a way out. You're giving them a way back, right? And then to be partway down that path and suddenly have COVID take away all of your opportunities and all your resources and that kind of thing, right?
Right.
If you're not building that bridge for them, they could just get stuck again.
Right.
They could end up back in incarceration.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is really cool. And it sounds like you've got some great partnerships, some people who are helping you. What do you need? As you envision building this thing out forward, what do you need help with?
Oh, what don't we need help with?
I hear you, man. I hear you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we need help with everything. You know, we're just trying to figure it out. You know, that's it, right? We're just trying to figure it out. I tell people it's like a couple of analogies I use. One is that we've somehow got this airplane off the ground and we're building it while it's in the air.
Yep.
That's one.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the other analogy is that, like, I know I've got this Ferrari, like this beautiful classic Ferrari. The challenge is that it's unassembled.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But once assembled, and even while we're assembling this Ferrari, I humbly would like to think that we are not only making an impact on the lives of those we want to serve, but in our community, I would like to think that we're making some sort of impact.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to think that all the amazing, amazing, amazing people who have helped us along the way and who have come out and volunteered some of their time at the farm or volunteered some of their time helping us do back-end work on the administrative side or the social media side, you name it. I would like to think that as much as they have helped us, that we help them in some small sort of way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The joy and the beauty isn't necessarily at the end when the Ferrari's done.
Right.
The joy and the beauty is the process of building it.
Yes.
And the people you impact along the way. Absolutely.
Yes.
I get that. I get that. If somebody wanted to know more about the Opportunity Farm, or if somebody wanted to know more about the LLC, the nonprofit, but if they wanted to know more about just the the farming endeavor, where would they go to get more information?
Oh, great question. Thanks for asking that. As far as the LLC, the We the People Growers Association, I've put that on a back burner
Okay.
right now, and so that's just kind of sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
I've got plans for it. Yeah, I got some plans for it, but it's just sitting there right now, and everything goes through We the People Opportunity Farm.
Okay. All right.
People can find out more about us on our website, which is the acronym. Well, it's We the People OpportunityFarm.org, or you can go to WTPOF, which is the acronym .org, and learn about us on our website. We've also got a couple of social media pages. I think our Facebook page is We the People Opportunity Farm, and our Instagram page is WTPOF.
Okay.
So those are places people can go and learn a little bit more about us. And folks can also email me or contact me directly. My email address is Melvin P, as in Peter, at WTPOF.org.
Okay.
And my direct number is 734-757-5067.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Melvin, first, thank you for sharing this story with me.
Hey, thank you for inviting me to ramble and babble a little bit about my travels and the work that myself and some amazing people are going about the business of doing.
Indeed. And thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for the stuff that you're doing for the community, man. We all have to do our part, right?
Yes.
The community builders. There's a special blessing for the community builders. So if you were to go back in time, right? I don't know how old you are. So let's say we're in our 50s.
I am in my 56 to be exact.
All right, we're pretty close.
All right.
So we have some benefit of hindsight, right? And we don't know where we're going, but we do know where we've been.
Right.
If you were to imagine going back in time to the point where you are a young man, you are maybe on the streets in Detroit. You've got all this shit going on around you.
Yeah.
You got drugs, you got gangs, you got a lot of stuff happening, and you don't know where the path is going to lead. You might not see a way out of the dark place. So now you're looking back on the rearview mirror, and you could go back to the point where you were then. What would you tell yourself?
Wow, what would I tell myself? I don't know. That's a good question.
It's an interesting question, isn't it?
It is an
Because
interesting
if
question.
you could look back and touch little Melvin on the head and say, "Hey, you need
Right.
to know this.
Right.
This will get you through the next few decades." I like that question. I like the thought process that goes into it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of it's a lot of thought process that goes into that, man. I think the thing that comes up for me is that I would tell Melvin, not to go the easiest route, like not to go down the path of least resistance, or to stick to it, to listen to your grandmother, to listen to your grandfather, right?
Yeah.
To change who your heroes are, who your role models are, things like that. I would think, However, with that being said, I understand now that all those things, all those things, all those journeys, all those days of being homeless, or days of being high, or days of being locked in a cell, and all that came with that, has made me the person who I am today. I get that too. But a person does not have to go through all of that to be a productive citizen, a respectful of life,
Yeah.
and a respectful of themselves person. It took that for me, but I wouldn't recommend that for anyone, right? Kind of like that, right?
I hear you, man.
Yeah, man.
I hear you.
Yeah. I mean, and folks know about this now, but back in 2019, May of 2019, I almost killed myself. I got into a car accident, and the accident was my fault.
Okay.
At the time, I had quite a few years of sobriety under my belt, and during that time, like over the last 4 or 5 years, the best way I can put it is like I become a big deal, like I'm a big deal, right? Whatever. Like I end up on the cover of magazines, radio interviews, people, want stuff and things like that. And so that, and I don't know I didn't know how to handle that.
Sure.
It just felt like a whole lot of pressure, like lots of pressure. And one of the things that, having went through all I went through, is that I never learned how to take care of myself. And so one day in that, May 19th, I think it was, something in me told me to drive down to Detroit and get loaded, and I did.
All right.
And on the way back home, in my pickup truck, I passed out at the wheel and flipped my truck. My truck wound up flipping over 4 times on I-94, and I broke my neck in 3 places.
Oh, shit.
And fortunate to survive, really fortunate to have survived.
Yeah.
And but as a result of that, it was it just reset me in a lot of different ways, and as a result of that, I've got, I take life more seriously. I take Melvin more seriously. Like I don't run from Melvin like I used to. I don't strive to be Farmer's Parson as a result, so that I can not be Melvin Parson.
Yeah.
Right, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That kind. So I put some space in between Farmer Parson and the work, and Melvin Parson, so that I don't lose sight of Melvin Parson. If that makes any sense.
It does.
I've got a therapist that I see. I've got a financial literacy coach. I've got professional development people,
Yeah.
right? You know, and I really strive to be a good father and a good grandfather and a good friend, and you know, I've got a dog, so I try to be a good companion
Be a
to
good-
my dog,
yeah.
and you know, and yeah, so and I don't feel pressure. As a
Yeah.
result of that, I don't feel pressure. I feel like, you know, I'm right where I'm supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, and I've got people around me that help support me, and more importantly, that I allow to help support me. And
Yeah, you've got a good team.
I've got a good team,
You've
but
got a
it
good
took that in
Well-
order for me to catapult me in this direction.
It took the
Of course,
accident? It
took
took the relapse and
accident.
accident?
Yeah.
Okay.
In order for that to happen. I would like to think, man, that I'm not that thick-headed where the universe needs me to...
You know, no matter who you are, no matter how much of a big shot you are, sometimes you just need to get cracked upside the head
Oh, man.
to remind you.
That's right, man. Yeah,
You got a
yeah.
reminder, is what it was.
Yeah.
Hey, get your shit back. Don't go off track. Man.
Right, man. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.